Grouping splitting games have a lot in common with grouping in-out selection games because both game types involve dividing variables into two groups. For an in-out game, the groups are in and out. For splitting games, they're perhaps group 1 and group 2, group A and group B, and both game types involve lots of conditional logic. If one variable is in one place, then where does the other variable go? So we have if group 1, then group 2, or if not group 2, then not group 1, and of course variations on each of those. Again, same ideas, which variables must be together, what cannot be together, what can be in one group, what must be in one group, what cannot be in one group, and how do those variables relate to each other, of course. Our job for this game type is simply to determine which variables will be in one group and which will be in the other group. And here I have an example for you of what a grouping splitting game diagram might look like. Notice here that I'm using subscripts. We have if G sub H requires D sub J, then what would the contrapositive of that be? Well, if there are only two groups, let's say they're H and J, and D were not in J, what would that be? Well, if D were not in J, then D would be in H. And if G were not in H, then G would be in J. So the contrapositive of what's happening with G and D on the top diagram is what is happening with D and G on the bottom diagram. I really just included this diagram as an example, but couldn't help walking through it a little bit. I have a link to the full game and my explanation of how to solve it and how to draw this diagram linked below this video if you'd like to see the full setup and walkthrough for what a grouping splitting game might look like in practice. Grouping splitting games are not the most common game type, certainly. They're still a really important game type to master because they hinge a lot on conditionality and on your ability to take contrapositives and thoroughly understand them. So don't miss this often neglected game type. It is important, and if you want to master logic games, you've got to be able to do grouping splitting games as well.